I don't know if you guys are ready for the next speaker, but it's me. Surprise. There was a little change today. I wasn't in the original lineup, but I got shoehorned in at the end. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to do a little intro first. So if, I know this has been a long con. If you guys want to get up and get a drink of water and stretch your legs and use the restroom before I really dive into the meat of all this, now's the time to do though. I'm going to blabber for the next 3 to 5 minutes about what I'm doing today. But the short version is we're going to look at the APIsec product and determine all the different ways you can get value out of it. All right. The APIsec product. Let me share my screen here. Now we've got some action going. Let's drop this down here so I can see chat while I'm doing this. All right. APIsec is a security testing platform built to automatically test your APIs, right? And effectively what it's doing is emulating a red team of sorts that understands your application and understands how it's built, and it's going to provide a pen test for you, right? When you're pen testing an application as a security specialist, one of the important things that you're doing is providing as much coverage as possible, given the scope of your assignment, right? When you call a red team in, a pen testing team, whatever you want to call it, and you say, hey, here's my application, here's a week, here's X amount of $1,000. Please go break it as much as you possibly can and tell us how we can fix it, right? That's like the short version of what these people are doing. So at the core of APIsec is the ability to, I argue, enhance that team's capabilities, right? Because if you think about a lot of these teams come in on like a yearly basis, some of them are on a quarterly basis. Maybe you work for an organization as part of a team that tests every single month, right? Which means every single month you're running a lot of these tests. You know, you're checking for rate limiting, you're checking for specific security headers that you want to make sure are present on all of your different endpoints. You're checking for cookie tampering, right? Like each one of those is an exercise, a manual exercise often, right? And we test all our APIs using APIsec daily. Awesome, Dave. That's great, man. I love to hear that. So the point I'm trying to make though is like it's tedious, right? Especially for stuff like simple headers and whatnot. Like to get a response from every endpoint on the application and verify that every single one of those responses has the header in it. It's a time-consuming exercise. And of course, you can write scripts and there's tons of tools that you can use to make these different processes a little more automated for yourself. But what we argue at APIsec is why not use a tool like ours versus writing your own script and having to tailor them to the various environments that you're working in, right? You can instead, if you have a spec or a Postman collection or a gateway or something we can use to understand your application, drop it into APIsec, and all of that testing that I'm talking about, all of the header testing, and you can even get as deep as like RBAC and BOLA testing, like Ade was talking about, happening all automatically for you, so that when you leave the engagement, APIsec is still continuously running all of the tests that you set up while you were there, right? And when you come back 3 months later, because the app has been updated and all of this other stuff has happened, ideally APIsec's been running the entire time. And you have a pen test report in your hand, right? That's going to tell you, okay, all of these endpoints have all these headers and all of your RBAC stuff is still good. Nobody has authentication, anything they shouldn't. We checked that from last time you set this up. All your BOLA stuff is fine. We know which users have which IDs and we're testing them against each other for you. And here's a report that shows all of that, right? Imagine having a red team that you show up and they just hand all of that to you and can explain all of that to you. That's what we're trying to do with APIsec. So what does that look like, right? Today, I'm gonna demo this by using the one request APIsec University capture the flag. Okay, and this is something that we put on a while back, and it was a really fun Lord of the Rings themed capture the flag that is now hosted publicly at the URL here at the top. I'll drop that in chat for you all in case anybody wants to partake, because it is pretty fun. Dave, I appreciate the clarification. You don't work for APIsec, but if you ever want to, let us know. Maybe we can figure something out. You're doing a great job. So what we're going to do is we're going to find this first flag using APIsec, right? If we go to our challenges, there's a flag here that we need to discover Celimbrador's user ID in the API, right? And we have the docs here, which we have full access to, tells us how to do everything. We've got a Postman collection that we can access to use if we wanted to. But what I'm going to do is actually load this application into APIsec and try to use it to solve the first flag. While I'm doing that, I'm going to talk about a couple of things because I don't want to just look at it as a tool you can use CTFs for. That's really not what it is. but you can do it. You can use it that way, right? There's a lot of different ways you can use a tool, just like there's a lot of different ways you could use a burp. There's a lot of different ways you can use Postman. There's a lot of different ways you can use APIsec, and a lot of different ways that a lot of different roles from our customer base do use it. So let's dive in. Okay, I've already taken the liberty of setting up some account structure here for us. So we have a couple of existing accounts in the API, and I have some notes here for myself while we set this up. I'm going to log in here to my customer engineering team tenant. When you're a customer of APIsec, the free version of APIsec runs on the cloud. When you're a customer, you actually get your own unique tenant that you can operate out of. Skip this for now. Right. Oh, that was no spoilers. That was me making sure this all works earlier. Okay, so this is our dashboard. We can see all the different random applications I have loaded in here. You can see some test stuff. You can see there's some versions of Crappy that we've messed with. And they'll all exist here, as well as all of the instances of them. So if you're testing against dev, stage, prod, all those, lovely things that we do, maybe you want to use a sandbox like many of our customers do, because you don't want to, put any real data into a testing platform, which is fine. We recommend use QA data in a sandbox anyways. We got you covered. That's my point. So let's add this application in here. You can do this a number of ways. With an OpenAPI spec, you can use a Postman collection. We integrate with various gateway technologies. We support GraphQL pretty darn well. And all of these things are expanding, right? We're announcing new stuff that we're integrating with. We're getting better at GraphQL, and all of our testing categories continuously improve over time. We have teams of researchers, and APIsec University has over 100,000 students that are, in that Discord like we're talking about. Like, we monitor that Discord. And when we see stuff in there that is like, hey, that might make our product better, we do it. We're all about growth and being the best at this, right? Somebody asks, like, does APIsec think we're the best? And I do. I work for APIsec. I'm not going to speak on behalf of APIsec in that, right? But in terms of automatically testing APIs, we're tough to beat. So let's drop a JSON file in here, right? This is my specification file, which I downloaded from here. And we'll name it one request. Call it two, because I think I might already have another one named one request. It looks at the spec. It's able to pull out this base URL for us. Thanks. Shout out to Maltech Solutions for developing this for us, by the way. We'll click onboard. And now what the product is going to do is it's going to rip this whole spec apart. It's going to look at all the different endpoints. It's going to, if there were any parameters included, it's going to determine what they are. If the endpoints have authentication required, APIsec is learning that right now, right? And we can see that here. All these little locks indicate that the spec says these are authenticated endpoints. Let's slow down just a bit here, because I want to help everyone understand what we're looking at. Because what you're looking at right now is a breakdown of this application that exists on this API, right? This application is being powered by this API, which has now been loaded into APIsec. We can see all of these endpoints are direct correlation with everything you see here in the Swagger, right? Makes sense. This app model over here that you're seeing is meant to guide you through the testing process. There's a lot of different forms of testing that you can do. You can do unauthenticated testing. You might be getting 401s back from everything, but you can still see stuff like, if I hit your login endpoint or your register endpoint as an unauthenticated user, and I don't see that you have a rate limiting header, or the token endpoint, and I see you don't have a rate limiting header, I know simply with an unauthenticated scan that your token endpoint is open to brute forcing, right? I can just spam it all day long. You don't have rate limiting headers in space. But then we can set up authentication, right? What happens if we're testing as an authenticated user? When we're hitting all of these different endpoints that have all of these needs and requirements to them, parameters that are expected, and we do that as an auth user, what does that reveal to us? Are the rate limiting headers existing there? Do you have HSTS and CORS headers in place? Is your token tamperable? Can I change the algorithm on your JOT token and maybe change it to none and still get authenticated somehow, right? These are all things that a pen tester would test, and it's things that APIsec is going to do for you. So let's set up authentication first, because all these endpoints are authenticated. So in order for us to get the data we're after to solve this challenge, we're going to have to get authenticated. And thankfully, I already set up a couple accounts here, so we can get their profiles set up. Setting up authentication in APIsec is super duper easy. You can either click the little button here, configure authentication, or go to app configurations up here at the top and go to configure auth. We're going to add a new profile here. Call this Jesse, and it's a bearer token login here. Now the authorization URL is going to be found by looking at the docs. We can see right here, this is our authorization URL. Let me grab, I don't have it in my, okay, we can type it in. So it's going to be https://one request. Oh, there it is right there. One request.maltechsolutions.com, right? That's our base /token is the endpoint. Okay, come back here. My username I have already written down. It's just jesse@email.com here. You should see at email.com. Feel free to ask questions in chat about the product or any of the tests along the way too, folks. I am monitoring chat while I do this. And then the password was what? Testing one. All right. So what this would do is this would hit this endpoint, send this username and password, and look for a response, right? So what happens if we do that? Yeah, I know it's a bad password. Okay, we're not getting a 200 back here. We're not getting a token. Something's wrong. You can tell by this response body that it's not really parsing our data. It's saying the username is missing, but it's clearly not. So what's going on here? Well, if we open up this advanced section, we can see that there's some options to include some more stuff here. And if we look back at this token endpoint, you can see that there's a particular header that's required here, XAPI version v2. And I think we were missing that. So we'll need to add that here, XAPI version 2. Good. And then we also need, what was that other piece? I think it was grant type. We need a grant type, which I took a screenshot of here so I could remember what it all was. It's grant type password. That's right. So we'll add that as an additional body parameter. Password for the login endpoint itself, the token endpoint, it's actually going to be a URL form encoded content type. So now if we do the same thing, we can actually see we're getting a different response here now. You should be using version 2. So that means in my mind that the token worked, it hit this endpoint, and then we got a 403 from it. So let's confirm that by starting an authenticated scan. We'll select the auth profile that we just set up. Go ahead and initiate the scan. And it's going to start running in the background now. And we still have, oh, what just happened? We were unable to resolve the, please go to, oh, okay, what did I do wrong here? Password, username, URL vulnerability, grant type password, XAPI version v2. Looks all good. Let's go check it out. Okay. Oh, there it is. That's supposed to be a v2, not just a 2. Good eye, Bjorn. Very good eye. So now we can see we got our access token back. So I was wrong before. We weren't producing the access token. Now we're getting it, and we're getting the correct responses. So in this case, a 422 is normal, right? If we look at, like, I think groups, we don't have access to as a user. So we can test that here. See, 401. So now we have the token and we're getting the correct response back. Excellent. Let's try this again. Okay, so while this is running, we have free reign to make changes in the tenant. You can see that it's asking us for some stuff to continue accelerating the app model forward. These are all IDs that were pulled out of the spec that the application is using, or values rather, I should say. Some of them are IDs. And so in order for us to get great testing results, we need to provide some of these, right? Okay, so we provide these parameters, and what that does is it gets us better results, right? So without these parameters for some of these requests, we're probably going to get like 4xx responses back, indicating that we're not providing a proper request structure. When we fill these in, then we start getting those 200s back. And once you have a 200, you can start doing things like injection testing, right? You can start injecting or putting injection payloads into all of the various parameter options that are there, whether it's query, body, et cetera, and get those tests back. But until you have that 200, you really can't do that, right? I mean, you could just send injection payloads to an endpoint without a successful request returning, but 99.99% of the time, that's not going to yield anything for you. So here's our scan history, right? From here, we can go scan history. Here's our scan that we just ran. It shows total number of tests executed, how long it took, the number of vulnerabilities that we discovered in that time. right? And here it's mostly looking like there's some info leak, verbose error messages, and some PII, right? That's interesting. We can see here PII looks like emails are being revealed. So let's, oh, look, IDs, Eomir. There's an ID for Eomir. What was our challenge? Discover Cylindrador's ID on the platform to infiltrate their communications. So I wonder then, right? Like maybe he's in here. So let's just like expand these results. It looks like we have a ton of pages of results here to go through. He could be anywhere in here. I haven't seen him just scrolling yet, but once I've done this a couple times, I'll control F. All right, let's see. Cylindrador. There he is. Right? So here's the PII caught by APIsec. That looks like his ID. Incorrect. Did I not do the right format? Enter Cylindrador's UUID. Oh, wait, is that the wrong thing? That should be it. Oh, maybe it's user ID up here. Is that it? There we go. See, that's flag one down, right? So that APIsec led us right to it. All we did was set up auth and run a scan. And just by like viewing the results of the scan, I saw that first flag, right? And so, oh, here's a question. A personalized plan would be appreciated if you're open to supporting individual penetration testers and bug bounty hunters. Yeah, we do that. We do that. Talk to us if it's something you're interested in. We have some clients that are enterprise level pen testers who bring our product into enterprise organizations and use it to help them provide tests and reports and whatnot. So yeah, that's there. Just talk to us about it. Anyway, my point that I was trying to make is that APIsec walked us here, which is really awesome. And I wanted to highlight, what this looks like in other scenarios versus just like a capture the flag, because if you're a pen tester or somebody and you get assigned an application and they hand you like a Postman collection for an API, right? And they say, here you go test it. You have no predetermined context of what that application is trying to accomplish, right? It's like getting dropped into an escape room that you've never been in before, effectively, right? There's all sorts of stuff in here that you can play around with. So what APIsec is doing here for us is kind of digging through that stuff. It would be like if you had a partner in that escape room with you who would go, that's interesting over there, and that's interesting over there, and that might be a way out, and that might be a way out, except for we're trying to break in instead of breaking out, right? And when we look at the test execution summary, you can see exactly what sort of tests we're running here and what categories are available to us. So let's look at like a post request. We're checking for CORS headers. We're checking SSL certificate validation. We're checking HSTS and rate limiting. We're looking at tokens and making sure that we can't, do anything to your token that would allow us to either get info from you or manipulate it into a way that gets us access to authenticated resources. We would be doing injection stuff here, but look, see, we're passing null and we're getting a 422 because of that null that we're passing. So if we were getting a 200 here instead, if we set these up with valid parameters, our injection category would start running and throwing injection timers in here to see if we could get your server to sleep for a few seconds. And then we would look at the response time and see, oh, we told you to sleep for 7 seconds and our response time was 7 seconds and 26 milliseconds. So this might be an injection category, right? And then you would get a flag of a vulnerability potentially present. We now delete the old scan data. Last time when I used it, there was no option for deleting old scans. I don't believe that there is. I think this is application. Yeah. Right now, I mean, we could do that for you, Siobhan. Like the reason that might be in the product in the future. The reason that it's not right now is pretty simple. It's that we don't want people deleting stuff and then finding out that they needed it later. And let me give you, this has actually happened. So let me give you an example. We had a customer who was given a window for, I believe it was SOC 1 that they were trying to get done. And they said, we're going to need testing results from this 6 month window, right? And so we started propping their program up about 3 months before that. And we got to that 6 month point and we were ready to start like with that whole process with them. And then the people came back that he was talking with and said, "Ooh, actually, we're going to start your window 3 months earlier than we originally suggested." Right. So thankfully we had all of these old logs while we were setting up. that had a bunch of valid tests as we got things together, right? And he was able to take that and show it to people and say, hey, we were doing the testing. Where if like him or one of his teammates had come through here and been like, oh, this was just a setup test, we don't need this in here anymore, and then deleted it and it's gone forever, you're totally out of luck in that scenario, right? So it's just something to be mindful of. Like we go back and forth with customers on how they handle stuff like that, because APIsec does have a pretty firm stance on the way that things should be done, and we're willing to tell you what our opinion is before we let you do it your own way. So yeah, hopefully that was a pretty decent answer. Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope it was. All right. So the scan is done. We've seen what tests look like. We've seen the types of stuff that it's getting back to us. Okay, let's show just a couple more things here really quick. So again, providing parameters, you can see as we've been doing this, the app model is progressing. We gave it some credentials. We're running more tests now. This percentage is going up, meaning we're running more and more tests. We could come in here and provide the parameters at the endpoint level. You can do everything that we're talking about specifically at the one endpoint level too, right? So I could add a specific header to this endpoint, a specific query parameter. We can also add individual endpoints, right? So if there's a new endpoint for the spec that we want to add, we could add it here and set it up so that we don't have to reload a new spec, or maybe we do have a new spec and we could just not remove our old endpoints and load all the new ones in with it. There's a whole bunch of different ways to help APIsec understand your application better and better. My favorite thing about APIsec, and I think one of its most powerful features, is our ability to test RBAC and BOLA. In order to do that, you need peer credentials. So I'm just going to set up one more set of peer credentials here really fast. Let's add on Jesse2 authentication type bearer token. Let me grab, I think it's just Jesse2. Add this really quick. There, this is. It's all the same stuff, right? We need our X API version header because the API is expecting it. We need our grant type password. This needs to be form encoded. Got our token. So now we have two users, right? And that allows us to do stuff like this. Set up user access. Let's get an RBAC map going, right? So let's pretend that one of these is a user and one of them is an admin. We could set up both of these guys, include them in our RBAC testing, run an access check, and it's going to go hit all of these endpoints now. Again, the configurations we were talking about earlier, those parameters that we use to get the 200 and make our app model go up, if that had been done already, these results would be better, because we might be getting 4xx's from some of these responses due to configurations not being in place, right? Let's pretend all of that's formatted though, for the sake of this hypothetical RBAC map. What would happen is, let's say that the admin is supposed to have access to this endpoint, but the user is not. And right now, based on what we're detecting, the user does have access. Well, we can tell APIsec, hey, the user's not supposed to have access there, right? In fact, let's pick a different one that's a little easier. Let's look at a GET request, GET activities, right? Let's say it's not supposed to be accessible to this guy, actually. We'll save that. Let's save both. So it's the endpoint activities. So if we come back out here, we look for this endpoint, we just scan this guy by itself. It's another thing, you can absolutely control the scopes of your scans as well. So if there's only a handful of endpoints you want to test, or maybe there's a particular microservice on an application you need to test more than the rest of the application, you're absolutely able to do that and set up scan profiles to do so. You can see we got a new vuln here now, RBAC, right? The application automatically detected, hey, you told us that we were not supposed to have access here, and we got a 200 when we hit it with that other guy's token. So you might want to go check that out. Here's your remediation. Here's what the detection is. Here's what we're asserting. Here's the log with the little red thing that proves what we're trying to tell you, right? How does APIsec discover all of the endpoints of a site? Swagger file? Yep, that's correct. I will tease a little bit that we are moving and innovating into the realm of discovery. You can see now in the platform that we have this import values for Bolt. So we are working on technology that will like crawl your application, look for endpoints, find variables, export a JSON file from that with all of that detail that you can then import into APIsec and automatically populate all of these parameters that we're missing. right? Based on the HTTP examples. So no official news on that right now. We're kind of piloting it and testing it, but that's the path that we're on. All right, I'm coming up short on time. Bola works very much the same way, right? You set up scenarios in here and you test exactly what Ade was talking about. You could do something like, I know that user A owns this resource and user B does not. So I want to test to make sure user B can't access it every single time we run it. That's possible within APIsec. You can see the power of all the different testing options and functionalities and all of the different use cases, right? Like whether you're inputting this directly into your CI/CD pipeline, fully propped up with all of the parameters and everything included, um, and causing the builds to fail if there's a new vuln, right? Like maybe you're using it that way to prevent builds from even getting to prod. Maybe you're a pen tester who's using it to maintain a certain level of coverage on one of your clients. Maybe you're a student who's hacking a CTF and looking for the first flag. There's all sorts of different ways to use APIsec. It's insanely powerful, and I'm really proud to be part of the team that works on it and helps people test their applications with it. But I think I'm going to call my presentation to an end there. See if we have any last questions. Could have done Google search, but here now, so why not? How is APIsec different from manual pen testing? Is APIsec cloud or on-prem? APIsec runs in the cloud. We do have an on-prem option that is possible, although expensive and typically only used by like enterprise environments that really required it. We also have these hosted agents here, which is a Docker container you can deploy within your own environment that allows you outbound access so that you can access our scanners, and gives you full control over all of the data being sent in and out from your private network. We come up with lots of different creative solutions for this. How are we different from manual pen testing? It's like, imagine if you could record all of the manual stuff you did in Burp for a day and click a button that says, do all that again for me and do it every month or so, right? Like that's kind of what we're doing.